Grounds. Welcome back to our look through some of the Italian zombie movies from the 70s and 80s. This time around we're in 1981 and a film that's widely known as Burial Ground. It's also known as Nights of Terror or Zombie Horror. It's one of a number of films that was released under the title Zombie 3. Here in the UK we know it as The Zombie Dead, but an awful lot of you will know it as that one with the creepy kid. Before we get on to the film, let's hear it for Vipco. They were doing the sterling work that's now been picked up by the likes of 88 Films, Blue Underground, Scream Factory and Arrow Video. But back in the day, Vipco were the go-to company for releasing the grindhouse and video nasty titles, getting them uncut or as uncut as possible into our wholesome homes and onto our TV screens to corrupt our fragile little minds. Thank you, Vipco. I don't know if this film has had the HD treatment, has been upgraded to Blu-ray or whatever. I must admit, I kind of liked watching it in all its grainy old DVD goodness. There's something about watching it in a relatively low quality for today's standards that just helps the grindhouse aesthetic of this terrible movie. There's no real plot to speak of. The setup is perfunctory and then things kick off. It's a bold approach that may leave the casual viewer scratching their heads for the majority of the runtime, waiting for some sort of exposition or explanation. Basically, there's a mansion. There's a professor there studying an Etruscan crypt that's nearby. The mansion's owner is visiting for the first time with two other couples, his wife and their creepy son, and we will get to him later. The professor raises the dead somehow, and the holidaymakers, as well as the mansion's maid and butler, try and survive the zombie horde by holding themselves up in the mansion. But only after the couples have paired off for some softcore TNA that's so uncomfortable you will be screaming for the zombies to get a shuffle on. The film was shot in 4 weeks at the Villa Parisi in Frascati, which is about 20 kilometers from Rome. Thank you, Wikipedia. Something I always marvel at when I watch Italian horror movies is how absolutely gorgeous their locations are. The decayed grandeur sort of adds a patina to these films that money can't buy. Another thumbs up goes to the zombie makeup in Burial Ground, The Zombie Dead. It's clearly cheap, but it's really quite endearing. They've learned a trick from Lucio Fulci's Zombie 2 by incorporating not only real worms but plenty of wriggling maggots to try and sell these shambling undead on being resurrected corpses. And for every sort of cheap and nasty toothsome skull mask where you can still make out the human lips behind the teeth, there's also a radically distorted, messed up face that gives a lot of these zombies a weirdly sort of impressionistic feel. They look dead and rotting, but they also look quite a few stages beyond human in some cases. In fact, the zombies, whilst agonizingly slow, are one of the bright spots in the film. For a start, there are a lot of them, which really helps sell the slow, inevitable menace of pursuit. 1, 2 you can maybe get away with. 3, 4 you're in a little bit of trouble. Once you get to 6, 7, 8 and they start surrounding and you start tripping, getting cornered, then you're in real trouble. This is exactly how I love my zombies. The zombies in Burial Ground are tool wielding. They can use tools, they can use tactics. They have a weird sort of seeming hive mind where all at once they decide to stop the attack at one place in the mansion and move around and try and find another weak spot or gain entry somewhere else. It's something you don't often see in zombie movies, and it's really quite creepy. The final bright spot, and congratulations, should go to Eliseo Mancuso and Berto Pisano for their fantastic soundtrack. It's all synthy goodness. Aside from the sort of porn jazz at the start, don't be put off by that. Although even that kind of has its charm. We get into the Moog synthesizer Italian horror score in no time. My girlfriend couldn't get on with the score at all. She thought it was way too sci-fi for a horror film soundtrack, and it is very sci-fi like. For me though, that slight dissonance really sold the utter uncanniness of the zombie attacks, as if merely laying eyes on the zombie horde causes your brain to sort of short circuit and shut down. Let's be charitable and say that's why all the characters, simply freeze and watch what's happening to them without any action or reaction. All the time. It's so frustrating. You'll get some zombies and these suckers are slow, shambling towards a character who will go because he or she has to wait for them to get close enough to attack, or at least close enough for them to have a question mark put over whether they could simply walk into another room. Seriously, no one character ever acts in a reasonable or believable way to any of the situations they find themselves in. Good Lord, even the conversations they have before the zombies turn up aren't the interactions of a group of humans. Instead, they seem to be a group of random androids who are all trying to pass the Turing test with one another. The maid and butler take orders throughout the zombie siege. The dead have come back to life and are trying to eat us, but heaven forbid we forget etiquette. They get ordered around like the working class scum that they are, and instead of feeding these jet-setting Phoebes to the ghouls and running away whilst they're distracted, they serve drinks on silver trays and go and explore shadowy parts of the mansion alone just because some twat with a moustache and a sports car tells them to. There are only really two characters of note, Evelyn and her son Michael, the boy. Oh dear God, the boy. Whilst the character is about 12 years old, he's played by 25-year-old Peter Bach for reasons that are obvious when you understand what Michael is asked to see and what he's asked to do. The clear substitution of a boy for a diminutive man does add a comedic element, or at the very least, a WTF element. Then it all starts getting creepy and wrong. Very wrong. There are two moments between mother and son which on their own probably cemented this film's cult status and saved it from total obscurity. I think those two scenes are probably the only reason I'm talking about this film now to you in 2018. It would be a shame to spoil either of them for the uninitiated, but let me allude to it this way. If ever I'm watching a film that cries out for a living room commentary like Mystery Science Theater 3000, I try and make Arnie-type puns at the end of every death. When Michael and his mother's relationship comes to its conclusion, shall we say, I turned to my girlfriend and said, "Thanks for the memories." I've seen this film twice now, and it's fair to say that after the first time, which was easily over a decade ago, I hated it. Seeking it out for this review, I wasn't even certain that I hadn't thrown the DVD out. But I'm a hoarder and sometimes that does pay off. This time around, I found that I'd warmed to Burial Ground, The Zombie Dead, quite considerably. I'm not saying that this film is good in any way, shape or form, but I'm glad it sat there on my shelf for those 12 to 13 years, unloved and unregarded. Burial Ground is mindless. If you go in expecting any semblance of plot, a satisfying conclusion, even a single character you can get to know and care about, you will be massively disappointed. However, if you're in the mood for a film that says, fuck all of that, have some zombies, here are some boobs and here are some gory deaths, plus the boy, then this may just be the party film for you.